Good afternoon, guys. How are we today? I am doing pretty well. I'm kind of getting sick of the rain, but it is what it is. So, I am going to talk today about something that's been really helpful for me with my toddler. I have a 2.5-year-old, and he has been very, I would say, challenging compared to my other two who are now 9 and 6. And he tends to be more independent and wants to do things on his own, has more of a stubborn streak, that sort of thing. So I have been using some of these toddler tools that I'm going to talk about with you today to really help him just thrive and to help us to handle sort of some of the struggles and challenges that come with toddlerhood, which, as we know, there are many. So I'm going to just introduce a few of them to you today, and talk about some of the basics as to what you could just start with and use with your toddler and see how they are effective. And so a toddler in general is basically the years from ages 1 to 4. Eric Erickson, who is a developmental psychologist, he talks about it in the toddler stage is 18 months to 3 years old. So basically, during this stage, toddlers are really very concerned about their sense of autonomy. Okay, so this is like the biggest thing that they need is having a sense of autonomy. So to have success during this stage, if children are encouraged and supported to increase their independence, then they become more confident and secure in the world and in their own ability to survive. But if they're overly criticized or controlled or not given the opportunity to assert themselves, then they start to feel inadequate in their ability to survive and may become overly dependent on others, lack self-esteem, and feel a sense of shame or doubt in their abilities. So this is a very critical time of life that we need to really support our child in the way that they need, which is to help them to really develop this sense of autonomy so that they feel capable, so that they develop confidence. It's very, very critical. This is where they start to, have that foundation of confidence for their whole life. And so I'm just going to introduce myself in case you're new here. My name is Adrienne Bishop. I am a life coach for parents, and that means that I help parents to remain calm and confident so that they can raise successful, resilient adults. So back to toddlers. Basically, as you know, during this stage, they really do start to show independence. And it sounds something like, me do it. That's what my son says a lot. He says, me do it, or my turn. And so this is critical in their development during the 2nd and 3rd year of life. But this kind of independence creates a huge challenge for parents, right? Because we want our child to be independent, but we also want them to follow our instructions. We want them to do what we need them to do. And also, letting our children be independent can cause a lot of mess. It can cause anxiety over maybe our kids getting hurt doing dangerous things. And the whole problem is that if we don't allow our child to explore or to be independent or to do things on their own, they will not be able to thrive without that support. So the idea is that if we are not allowing our child to explore by slapping their hand or punishing them when they do, they instead develop a sense of shame and doubt in their abilities instead of confidence. So that's why it's so important to understand the development of where your child is at all times, at all stages of childhood. Because as parents, we're responsible for supporting them in what they are learning. What life skill are they learning during each stage? And that will help guide us in how we correct or how we discipline, right? So part of your job as a parent of a toddler is to help them learn to channel their power into positive directions, okay? As opposed to just having power struggles with you, right? Or with others. So some of the tools that positive discipline offers are really helpful and supportive with toddlers, okay? One of the biggest tools, and I've talked about this in some of my past lives, is one of the biggest tools that I use a lot is kind and firm. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Also, the three kind of key words that I go back to when I'm dealing with my toddler is supervision, redirection, and distraction. Okay, so if you can just remember supervision, redirection, and distraction, you'll be able to solve a lot of your toddler struggles. So when we are able to use some of these tools right now, we can help them to develop the skills of problem solving for when they're old enough to be able to do that. And then they also learn respect and how to cooperate with each other, with others. But punishment, if we're punishing, if we're doing timeouts, if we're slapping hands, they're not going to learn these vital lessons, okay? What will teach them these vital lessons is effective and loving discipline. So I'm going to go over some of the nitty-gritty tools that will help you with your toddler. So distraction, redirection, and supervision, which is, again, my go-to words. You want to, during distraction and redirection, minimize your words and maximize your actions. So what that means is to show your toddler what you want them to do instead of what they can't do, okay? So you want to show them what they can do instead of what they can't do. Toddlers don't developmentally understand the word no. They don't even understand cause and effect until around 3.5 or 4. So using timeouts and things like that is not going to translate. They're not going to understand that the behavior that they did, even 5 minutes ago is why they're sitting in a chair. They're not going to understand that cause and effect. But instead, if we can just show them what they can do, allow them to explore, right? Allow them to explore in a really safe area so that they are able to explore without you having to stop them, without you having to say no. That's why we baby proof. One of the reasons is so that we can allow our toddler to be curious and to explore without having to stop them or punish them, right? And so when we're able to allow them to explore, we can just supervise, make sure they're staying as safe as possible. And then if they get into some trouble, we can do a redirection, move them physically with literally pick them up and move them away from something they're not supposed to have towards something they can have, okay? So we want to physically move them and use more action. So show them what they can do in the moment as opposed to what they can't do. So an example would be like if your toddler is hitting you or hitting their brother, you can stop their hand. If you're supervising it, closely enough, stop their hand from hitting and then redirect to something else. We're gonna use a ball and go outside right now. Or we can actually, show them to maybe throw or not throw, but to, what was I going to say? So instead of hitting, what they can do is they can tell you, or they can say no, or they can say stop. Okay. So you can give them something to do, or you can move them to another area, move them away from the child that they're hitting or away from you. So one of the other things that I kind of just mentioned was don't say no. You want to instead say yes as much as possible. This will help your child not resist you and not fight you as much. So even if they get upset after you say yes, right, telling them when and where this can happen. So if your toddler says that they want a cookie, you can say, yes, of course we can have a cookie after dinner. They probably will still get upset, and that's okay. You can just validate, empathize. I know it's so hard to wait until after dinner to have a cookie. And just repeat yourself like over and over. They're going to get upset, but know that it's okay for them to be upset. So this kind of goes with kind and firm. Also, kind and firm sounds like validating and understanding your child first, then moving to a firm statement. So respecting what they're doing. I see that you're having so much fun playing and it's time for a nap. Then move to distraction or choices. So you can either like pick them up and keep, move them toward the bed, or you can say something like, do you want to fly or jump to your bedroom? Do you want to read a book? Do you want to read the book about trains or the book about cars when we get upstairs? Try to make it fun and distract them by using choices about something that's upstairs that's going to be fun for them, okay? So that's an example of kind and firm. You want to say what you see and then use the word and then say firm, something firm, the command. Another really important tool is connection. So what our little one needs most is not a flashcard or a screen. Brain development is all about connection with other people. So how you talk and play and nurture is by far the most important factor in a toddler's development. Repetitive activities are what create bonds, and kids need unhurried time with caring adults, okay? So people who focus on the child and follow his cues without direction or expectation will create that connection. And so this idea is not child governed. We're not going to let the child run the house. It's child centered, okay? And that is what we want to focus on. And we want to give opportunities to play and play along with your child. And then if your child is misbehaving, we want to use that as a signal that there's something that they need that they're not getting. So misbehavior is like a code that we need to crack in order to help our child to feel needed and attention, connection, or time, or teaching. What do they need? We have to crack that code and figure out what do they need. So another really great toddler tool is getting children involved. Okay, so toddlers love to help. They love to help, and so instead of telling our toddlers what to do, we want to involve them in appropriate decision making. So we can talk about, we can ask questions. It's a good place to start. Like, where do we put your diaper? Or which book do you want to read? Or if the child is unable to talk, you can guide them instead of telling. You can say, can you pick a book for me to read, and hold out a few books? Or you can say, would you mind putting this in the trash for me? And then you can also just instruct and say, next and then you can show them the next step instead of just telling them the next step. So lots of actions instead of words. And then once the child is verbal, you want to provide opportunities for thinking using choices, okay? So let's give you an example, like your toddler is resisting going to the car. You can say something like, would you like to carry the blanket or the crackers to the car as we walk? You decide. Or you can ask them for help. Can you help me carry these keys to the car? And I've done this with my 2-year-old, and he loves it. He just takes the keys and he like runs to the car because he wants to help. And then he'll say something like, yay, me did it, or I did it. And he's beaming with pride. So asking children for help that's appropriate to their age level and letting them help you and getting them involved in problem solving and decision making is going to really help their behavior improve. They're going to feel useful. They're going to feel independent. They're going to feel capable. And when people feel capable, not just toddlers, we feel good. We feel better. Okay. And when we feel better, we act better and we do better. So that's what positive discipline really, really focuses on. So let's talk about one more quick thing, tantrums. Since as we know, toddlers can be very challenging with tantrums. So the reason they have these tantrums is because they lack the words for the strong feelings that they are having, and they don't have the skills to cope with these feelings. I mean, just think about how hard it is for you to control your own feelings. So we really shouldn't be surprised that our toddler isn't successful at it either. So what happens is when our toddler is tantruming or melting down, we have a reaction that is queued up by our mirror neurons in our brain. And so what happens is we get upset because they're upset. And that's a natural thing that happens in our brains, and it's actually a survival tool. However, it's in like our primitive brain. We don't need to respond to that all the time. And so what we want to do is, instead of getting emotional along with your child and getting more and more upset and getting more and more worked up and more drama, we want to, which adds to the tantrum, right? If we're just yelling or we're explaining or we're talking or we're trying to get them to stop, it's going to add to the tantrum. Instead, we want to get curious. We want to view it like it was like we're an outside observer and it's not our child, or like it's an animal in a zoo or something. Get really curious and see what you come up with about, helping yourself calm, right? And so obviously giving into the tantrum is not the answer. So then if you give in, they'll just learn you're easily manipulated. So first we need to get calm. Then we need to label their feelings in as few words as possible and validate what they're thinking. You're really disappointed we couldn't buy the bunny. Then you want to act. Carry them to the car. Stay by them without talking. Hold them. Put your hand on their shoulder, but don't talk. Don't lecture. Their brains are flooded with emotion right now, and they actually literally cannot hear you. So words, the more talking you do, you're just going to add fuel to their tantrum. But not speaking even will help you stay calm. So it's super important that we work on this. And then we're going to take some deep breaths if we can and help our child to do the same. You can just simply stay close with a loving energy and let them have their feelings, barring your safety along with your toddler's safety. You can move things out of the way that they may throw or hit with. And then you can say, just loving words, just say you wanted or you didn't want, and help them to understand what's going on. You can offer a hug. You can ask for a hug. So positive discipline tools actually really do help us reduce tantrums. And so because they help your child to feel autonomous and to feel needed and loved. And so in that sense, they don't need to misbehave as much. However, toddlers are just going to tantrum. They're going to get upset, and it's normal and it's okay. You don't need to stop these meltdowns or, do everything in your power to not do something that will cause a meltdown. Then we're just living out of fear of our toddler, and we're actually letting them control us and our decisions and our actions. And we don't want our toddler to be controlling us or our decisions or our actions. So we want to make sure that we are okay with letting them be upset. And the reason this is so hard is because it's hard in our emotions, right? So I teach a lot about how to keep your emotions in check and what to do in these circumstances in my group coaching programs and in my one-on-one programs. So if this is something that's challenging for you, reach out to me and I can help you with this. Also, if these tools were something that really were helpful to you, I wanted to let you know that I'm offering an online toddler mini course with some added bonuses and some great resources, and it's going to be happening in March. So if this is something that you want to continue learning about and exploring a little more deeply, comment toddler below if you're interested in getting information, and I will send you information. Okay? All right, guys, good luck with your toddlers. I know it can be challenging. I'm right there with you, and I hope to see you in the workshop. Okay, guys, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.